Yeah, governments aren't always truthful with their people, with their citizens, and that's a problem because this democracy only works because we as citizens have faith and confidence in our institutions and those who are charged to represent us. And when governments do things that are not in the best interest of their citizens and then lie about it, then we have a significant problem on our hands.
We are all waiting. The Trump administration has promised transparency. They've come in like a bunch of renegades that are going to buck the deep state. And those of us who are desperate for transparency on this issue eagerly await. And then comes the word. And what we hear from the White House is wah, wah. Everything you guys saw in the air over New Jersey and everywhere else, fixed wing aircraft, helicopters, commercial drones, nothing to see here.
Everybody, make sure to check out the links down in your breadbasket. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the videos with your friends. Go do all the things right now. Come find me, x.com/shotdownmine.
And so when you have that in a government, when you have corruption in a government, then it begins to very quickly chip away, erode the very foundation of democracy. And when that happens, it's a very quick and very slippery slope into utter tyranny. And so my father happened to know a little bit about that and what that looks like because he lived through it. And I never forgot that. And it turned out that when you have corruption, again, in our own government, not necessarily monetarily, but someone is doing something for purposes that go against the ethos of our nation, then that's a problem. People are making decisions and doing things that they don't have the authority to do, not legally and certainly not ethically. And those are the enemies of the state. Those people, when you learn that there was a plan by the CIA, there was a time I worked a little bit with that organization, that that these conversations happen that we're having on Capitol Hill, because ultimately it's not my job to tell the American people the truth. It's the government's job to tell the American people the truth.
Holy moly. The greatest threat to humanity with Lue Elizondo. The Letho Files. I think he just calls himself Letho Files. And I think he's Chris Letho. There you go. Chris Letho sits down with Lue Elizondo. I don't cover Letho much. Let's see if it says it in here. It does. Chris Letho is a formal F-16 pilot with 18 years of experience in the Air Force. He's managed multi-million-dollar simulator contracts, was an electronic attack SME for the aggressors, OP4, and commanded the U.S. detachment at TLP for NATO fighter pilot training. Chris fought in Iraq for 5 months in 2006. He spent 3 years in Turkey as an exchange pilot and is fluent in Turkish, etc. So, Chris Letho's kind of a cornerstone of the ufology community. And the reason that we're watching today is because of Lue Elizondo. And, it's hard for me to stay super positive about Elizondo because of interviews like this one. This is an hour long. They spend, and I shouldn't say they, Lue Elizondo spends a good 30 minutes of the hour just complaining about ufology, complaining about detractors, complaining about people that don't believe him specifically. And I kind of thought with the new Lue, the Lue 3.0, that we were kind of past all that, right? This is a brand new interview, and it looks like it's lifted straight out of 2020, 2021. Because he's been better. He's been more likable. He's been at least he's come off as more forthcoming. He hasn't been complaining. And this one literally starts with 30 minutes of complaining. And he's got every type of complaining there. He's complaining about people calling him names, not believing him. He's bragging at some point about suing people for not believing him, for saying that he's a liar. This section here that says truths have come from the government, it's, what does it say it is? Okay, it says it's like 13 minutes long. Very little of that 13 minutes is about him saying the government should tell the truth. That really happens at the end of the show. It's really just more of him saying, you guys shouldn't criticize me. You guys were asking for a government insider to come out and tell you everything. And I did. And you guys don't believe me. And so that's where we have to try to stay positive, because, you know, if you've paid any attention to Lue Elizondo over the years, he doesn't ever tell you anything. He's good at it. He's good at kind of talking in circles, at what we would call deflection, pivoting. He has those talents. And I'm not sure there's anything wrong with that he has those talents, or that he does that, or that it may be his job to be out here fielding these questions and obfuscating. So never once. And with the new Lue 3.0, we've gotten a good 40 hours of interviews, right? All this stuff in Congress, all the different podcasts he's been on since then. So you got a good 40 hours of like the new Lue. And that's where he's saying the same things he was saying as Lue 1.0 and 1.5, but he's become more likable in the process, right? He doesn't seem as such of a jerk. Kind of until this interview, right? Until he spends 30 minutes of an hour just bitching about people not trusting him. And that's the point that he's kind of making, is that you guys are asking for someone from the government to come out and talk, and I'm that person, and I've come out and given you the truth, and they still don't believe me. And why wouldn't you believe me? I was doing it. I'm from the government. The truth is supposed to come from the government, and you're supposed to want the truth from me, who was in the government. But I don't know if he's being truthful or not, because he never says anything. He never claims anything. Not one person, Lue included, but none of the people who support Lue or anything in the realm of Lue Elizondo can come up with one phrase or one piece of info that Lue brought us, right? That Lue contributed to ufology. And so everything, he kind of shows up in 2017, sort of, with the Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal New York Times article, which featured him and his videos, and Christopher Mellon. We don't even know the specifics, but those folks and Christopher Mellon attribute some role to Lue in getting the videos from the innermost secret parts of the U.S. government out to the public. And so Lue Elizondo, Chris Mellon, they kind of get credited with bringing us the gimbal, the go fast, and the other video. Maybe it's the Nimitz Swarm, can't remember. But those three videos combined with the Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal article is what brings us Lue Elizondo and Chris Mellon. And then, since then, and like I said, we can give him the credit that he is due for whatever role he played in getting those videos out to the public. But since then, not a single word, not a single phrase, not a single interview, not a single anything could we attribute as new info being brought to ufology, being brought out to us, the public, by Lue Elizondo from the inner workings of the dark UFO government? Everything that he said has been carefully couched in deflective language, all sorts of metaphors and parables and motivational language, stuff that you would find on a 5th grade motivational poster, right? That would show you like a bunch of frogs hanging from a branch, and there'd be a quote on that poster that says something like, "Hang in there." That's how Lue Elizondo talks. He talks like those posters, right? And so he'll tell a story about like, well, what if we got into King Tut's tomb and we found a cell phone or 747? That would be weird. And so that's an example of kind of a parable that he tells all the time. But never once has he ever said, oh, on this day, on this year, at this time, at this place, I went with these people and saw this. That's never happened. Never. And there has been some since he's come out, right? Like he's been standing in his garden with Jesse Michaels talking about green fire orbs, and then a green fire orb appears in his garden and him and Jesse Michaels see it. And then, he goes on to tell the stories about all sorts of orb and paranormal activity that he's experienced since he's been out in the public eye. And so that's kind of like my personal most positive spin that I could put on Lue Elizondo. But then he does this interview where half of it is that basically the second 30 minutes is him and Letho talking about how, there's this 10 minutes on how true leaders go and do instead of sending people to do. Motivational poster parables. Life adapts everywhere. So he's just quoting Jurassic Park. Some of his cool stories have to do with him talking to his dad, who was a Cuban rebel. And so that's neat. But unfortunately, there's not much in this interview from Elizondo. Unfortunately, it never really is. Unfortunately for Lue, this is kind of like a reversion to like a Lue 1.5. He's got a good hat on this time. He doesn't look like a hobo. The hat fits well. Sometimes he wears really trashy hats that don't fit very good. It kind of just takes away from the whole presentation. So that's what I say. In Lue 3.0, they've kind of fixed most of those presentational issues. And then I guess the whole point of this interview is that if you don't know, Lue Elizondo, David Grush, Christopher Mellon are supposed to be summoned to the Federal Secret Task Force committee being run by Representative Luna. The three of them are supposed to be put in a skiff together. The three of them are supposed to get into a skiff together and talk it out, I guess. I don't personally understand why you put them all in the same room together. If they were doing some kind of investigation, kind of you'd expect that they'd take them all in one at a time and then maybe bring them all together. I'm not really sure. I guess, yeah, if you could get like a gloves off discussion between those three guys going on, where none of them are going to give you the line that they give you all the time about, I can't talk about that stuff because of reasons, that there'd be a lot of value to that. So, I'm willing to give them those points. But that's kind of what we're talking about in this hour. Is it looks like we're gonna get some Elizondo, Grush, Mellon, skiff action, and that it may actually happen at some point due to the probably optics of the Federal Secrets Task Force. And that'll be kind of exciting. I have no confidence in anyone who's a politician or a member of Congress coming out and telling us anything of any significance about anything, especially UFOs and aliens. So I doubt we're gonna get anything. We, the public, ufology, is gonna get any of the info that is tossed around in that discussion. And it's hard for me to believe that the congressmen and women come out of that discussion are going to then behave any differently than they have ever. So they're probably not going to come out and say, yeah, Grush and Elizondo and Mellon together have convinced us that there's this vast conspiracy and here's a place that we can go to confirm it all. You know, they might come out and say something that can kind of be milled down to look like those kinds of comments to the ufology world. And I think it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly if you're expecting much else. And that's not even a UFO and aliens thing. That's just a Congress thing. So, anyways, it's only an hour. There's no info in it. There's no info. There's nothing new. Yeah, he comes off better and he tells better stories in the second half than what you would have received if you're gonna watch a 3-hour interview on theories of everything from years ago. So it's, you know, there's some value in that, and there's some value in being able to visually see kind of the evolution of Lue 1.0 to 1.5 to 3.0. And I skip over 2.0 because Lue 2.0 is Grush. Like the rollout of Lue Elizondo after the article in 2017 and the videos, the rollout of Lue to the media and to ufology didn't go very well. He was not received well by ufology, and then beyond ufology, he wasn't received at all. Nobody knows or cares. A few people know and care, and that has to do more with the rollout of Lue 3.0 with his book Imminent and all of the podcasts that he's done, which amounts to about twice or 3 times the airtime of all of his interviews before the book. Elizondo is definitely kind of a good starting point for ufology news, because where you start at is right now in the current era with the update of the cover-up and the conspiracy. And the update is the New York Times article, the videos, the discussion afterwards, and the faces, the UFO celebrities that have emerged since 2017 and become the focus of all social media and all mainstream media, and become kind of the defining people for ufology for the next generation of folks. And it's an update. It's the same type of update that the conspiracy has installed in the past. It's just it's a modernized current one. And so that's where I see the kind of the value of this interview. And the fact that he spends half of it just kind of bitching about people not believing him is really telling. It's really telling. and it really, you can see. I mean, I don't know. The guy's an expert genius spook, I guess. But you can really see in his presentation that he holds himself in really high regard as far as his role and purpose and part of modern ufology.
I wasn't surprised. I mean, they are naturally going to want to try to soothe public concerns and prevent, any kind of uproar or panic. The fact is, they don't really know. They don't know what's going on. And it's very clear they don't know what's going on. So while it's true that many people were misreporting aircraft and things, there were clearly other cases. It's equally true that they could not identify the sources of the drones. For example, over Langley Air Force Base, after weeks, they're moving an entire squadron of F-22s. They can't fly safely from the Air Combat Command headquarters that is supposed to be protecting the nation's capital, among other things. So if they can't control their own airspace, what kind of a protection can we expect them to offer the capital and so forth? So deeply embarrassing situation for the administration, for the Air Force. And it's hard to reassure the public when they really don't have any facts. And people are understandably skeptical because they're not able to offer any definitive information about what's going on.
So they default to nothing to see here because they don't have any good answers.
Yeah, I think they default to we're not seeing any hostility or aggression, no reason to panic, which is about the best they can do because they really don't know.
Christopher Mellon on UFOs, secrecy, and what the public still doesn't know. The Chris Cuomo Project. This is the best Christopher Mellon interview or presentation ever. And it's Chris Cuomo just brings it out of him. And it's so funny because I think I've said it on every Chris Cuomo video that I've made. But this is the perfect place for Chris Cuomo. He has ended up at the exact right spot at the exact place and time that he is supposed to be. He is supposed to be the UFO journalist. And this is the best job I've ever seen him do in journalism, is when he's doing the Chris Cuomo Project on News Nation talking about UFOs. Because Chris Cuomo is a caricature. He doesn't pretend otherwise. He knows it. With his PBD kind of confession tour, he's clean now, right? Like, he's admitted to all the bad things he's done, all of his all of his oversteps as a journalist into entertainment and etc., covering his brother's government in the state of New York during COVID, and his coverage of the Trump administration, and his coverage of the Obama administration before. All of his career up to News Nation, he kind of apologized for it. And yeah, it wasn't the best apology, but it was an apology, and it seemed pretty genuine. Whether that's a show, which it probably is, because that's what he does, right? He makes shows. So I really enjoy watching Chris Cuomo. I really like him having the ufology people on there, and the way that he goes about it. He says, tell us why it's not all bullshit. Tell us why the government is fucking lying straight to our face. Right? Even in his intro here, where he's like, look, the Trump people, before they came to power, were all about Man, when we get there, we're going to tell you all about UFOs. We're going to tell you about JFK. We're going to tell you about RFK. We're going to tell you about MLK. We're going to tell you about everything. We're going to tell you about Epstein. It's all going to come out, right? Kash Patel on the Sean Ryan show saying that if he becomes the director of the FBI, on day one, he's going to make the Hoover building into a museum of all the crimes the FBI has committed over the last 80 years. And he makes the sound effect, right? He says, wah, wah. At every opportunity since they've been in power, they've basically done the same thing as all the other governments, all the other administrations, all the other presidents. They literally said the same thing that the Biden government administration was saying before it went out of power about UFOs and UAPs and drones in New Jersey. That they're all cool. They're all cool, man. All the things that all the people are seeing and being crazy about, that's all just cool shit going on. That's just the government. That's all FAA approved research stuff. Wah, wah. Chris Cuomo was much better. I wonder how many times he practiced it. You know? So, Christopher Mellon has not gone through any image or behavioral upgrades since 2017. We got Christopher Mellon 1.0 the whole time. He doesn't seem to suffer from the same problem of only speaking in parable like Elizondo does. He's just as good. He's probably way better at the deflection and the reflection stuff. There's a great part in here. I think it's around the 2/3 or 3/4 mark where Cuomo is paralleling the government's speech and actions about UFOs and UAPs and New Jersey drones to the way the Bush administration talked about weapons of mass destruction on the road to war with Iraq. It's super funny. If you know, you know, because Christopher Mellon worked for the Bush administration, technically, during that time period. He was an intelligence guy during that administration, and he was probably working for the Pentagon as an intelligence, what do they call them? Advisors. He's an intelligence advisor to the Senate from the Pentagon or from one of the agencies that he is purported to have worked for. So, and he does the thing. He does the deflection thing where he says, well, yeah, they weren't exactly lying. We weren't exactly lying when we were talking about, receipts of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But one of the funny jokes at the time that has gotten less funny because it seems to become true was, how would the American government and the intelligence community know that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq under the control of Saddam Hussein? And the punchline is because they kept the receipts when they sold them to him. Right? So, like I said, he doesn't suffer from the same inability to kind of talk around the specifics but not get too macro, that he's not still talking about the topic or the event that the interviewer is asking him about, right? So when Cuomo says, well, is the government fucking lying to us about these fucking UAPs? Chris Mellon says, probably. Instead of, well, insert some parable about national security. So he just, he speaks at a higher level than Elizondo ever does, and he doesn't do a good job of ever being like personable. He when he's being introduced before he's about to talk at the SALT conference or you name it, he looks fucking annoyed. He looks annoyed. He looks like he is embarrassed by his own credentials that he is basically a professional liar for the government. And then he'll go on to talk about UFOs and aliens for an hour and give you a presentation on here's all the stuff that we've seen in the public since 2017. Right? And he was a big part of the modern ufology era, the update, which kind of starts in 2017 with his introduction to the world, to ufology, to the public via Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal, New York Times article. And then he's credited with whatever role he played in getting the 3 videos out. Ufology consider him as one of the exponents of whatever club inside the inner workings of the United States government, or even the inner workings of some of the shallower levels of the conspiracy that are arguing with each other about disclosure. And so he's either cast out or sent out because of his position on disclosure, or sent out to present that club's take on UFOs and aliens and disclosure. And that take that ufology hypothesizes is that his half or his club thinks that it's in their benefit, in the conspiracy's benefit for some reason, to pursue a path of what they call soft or controlled disclosure. The other side of that coin inside of ufology is that this is Christopher Mellon, Lue Elizondo, showing up on podcasts like the Chris Cuomo Project is the update by the conspiracy of the cover-up. That they're actually out modernizing it, making it hip and cool, while at the same time downplaying every specific element. And so we've renamed UFOs into UAPs. We've renamed aliens into NHI. We've re-obfuscated the entire topic. Right? The government says it hasn't been looking into flying saucers and little green men since the end of Project Blue Book. And now if you ask the government if they're researching UFOs and aliens, they would tell you no, and they wouldn't even be lying because they're researching UAPs and NHI. And that's just the base level of it. The next little layer is that you then have Mellon and Elizondo and others right front and center in your living room, in your bedroom, in your car, in your hand, telling you, right? So yeah, he doesn't tell you anything in this interview. He just kind of agrees with Chris Cuomo that it's not good. It's not a good look for the government to lie straight to your face. But maybe they got good reasons. Like I said, I think it's definitely the best Christopher Mellon UFO interview probably ever. even though there's not a lot of info being presented. They don't go over the 3 videos. They don't go over any of the stuff that he basically goes over in his 2-hour presentation that you see him giving at places like SALT. Pretty much take the UAP New Jersey drone flap and have a UFO discussion about the government and secrecy and the Giggle murder cover-up. It's like the Giggle murder cover-up kind of ends in 2017, and now we have the UAP NHI update to the cover-up, and that has worked. It's worked really good. Everyone's on the edge of their seat waiting for what a congressman might come out and tell you about what he heard one dude tell another dude inside the room. And you can just see it on Kumo's face. You can see it in his body language, his wop wop, right? His whole presentation of ufology in this video and others. How has the update not worked?